Welcome to a space where faith meets real life and growth gets uncomfortable. This isn't surface level motivation. It's truth that stretches you, challenges you, and asks you to show up differently. If you're ready to stop avoiding the work and start becoming who God's been calling you to be, stay.
Some of you walked into this Friday already tired, and you don't even know why. Nothing dramatic happened today, but your spirit feels heavy, your thoughts feel crowded, and your peace feels delayed. That's because Friday is not neutral. Friday is a doorway. What you allow into this moment determines what shows up in your tomorrow. And whether you realize it or not, someone is always trying to speak into your next season. The enemy does not wait until Saturday to sabotage you. He starts whispering on Friday night when you're vulnerable, when you're reflecting, when you're replaying old failures, old fears, old disappointments. He knows if he can shape your expectations, he can shape your experience. But tonight, we interrupt that pattern. Tonight, we refuse to let the wrong voice narrate our future. Because before anxiety speaks, before doubt speaks, before fear speaks, you are going to open your mouth and declare what Saturday will look like. You don't wait to see how the weekend feels. You tell it how it will go. You don't wake up hoping for peace. You speak peace before your eyes even open. This is about taking authority over the unseen moments before they try to take authority over you. Friday is your opportunity to prophecy, to prepare, to posture yourself for what God is already arranging. And if you don't speak into your Saturday, something else will gladly volunteer your silence gives. The enemy permission to narrate your next. And this is the part we don't always want to admit. We think silence is harmless. We call it rest. We call it waiting. We call it processing. But sometimes silence is not neutral. It is an open mic. And whatever you don't intentionally fill with truth will get filled with assumption, fear, and accusation. The enemy does not need your agreement to speak. He just needs your quiet. He understands that if you don't speak into what's coming, he can start framing it for you. He will remind you of how last Saturday went wrong. He will replay that disappointment that blindsided you. He will tell you to lower your expectations so you won't be hurt again. And before you realize it, you walk into Saturday already bracing for impact instead of standing in expectation. Silence feels safe because it avoids responsibility. When you don't speak, you don't feel accountable for what happens next. But authority has always been tied to voice. From the beginning, God didn't think things into existence. He spoke them. And when you are made in his image, your mouth is not just for communication. It is for creation. So when you go quiet at critical moments, you're not being humble. You're being unguarded. You are allowing an unauthorized voice to write a script for a day God already intended to bless. The enemy loves Friday nights because this is when reflection turns into rumination. This is when you start replaying the week, evaluating your performance, questioning your progress, measuring your worth by what didn't get done. And while you're sitting there tired, emotionally open, mentally drained, he starts narrating. He tells you Saturday will be just as heavy. He tells you rest won't work this time. He tells you that peace is temporary and problems are permanent. And if you don't interrupt him, you'll start believing that script before the day even arrives. But here's the shift. You don't have to argue with the enemy. You just have to outspeak him. Authority is not about volume, it's about timing. Whoever speaks first often shapes the atmosphere. That's why you don't wait until Saturday morning to decide how you'll feel. You speak on Friday night while your faith is still awake. You speak while your mind is still flexible. You speak before fear has time to get comfortable. Because once you speak, you establish a boundary. You make it clear that this space is already occupied by truth. When you declare what Saturday will be, you are not being delusional. You are being deliberate. You are reminding your soul who is in charge. You are telling your emotions they don't get to lead unchecked. You are telling your body it will rest. You are telling your mind it will not spiral. You are telling your spirit to stay alert and aligned. Silence lets the enemy narrate your next, but declarations force him to adjust. And let's be honest, some of us stay silent because we're afraid of disappointment. We think if we don't say anything, it won't hurt as much if things go wrong. But muted faith does not protect you from pain. It only robs you of power. You can't whisper your way into victory. You can't think your way into peace. There are moments when you have to open your mouth and set the tone, even if your feelings haven't caught up yet. Speaking doesn't mean everything will be perfect. It means you refuse to let fear be the loudest voice. It means you choose faith as your narrator. It means you decide that no matter what shows up, it will not take over. When you speak into your Saturday, you are not controlling outcomes. You are controlling access. You are deciding which voices are allowed in your space. So before you lay your head down tonight, before you scroll one more time, before you replay one more worry, ask yourself who has the microphone right now. Because if it's not you declaring life, rest, clarity, and peace, then something else is already speaking. And the enemy never wastes Silence Friday is a prophetic position, not a passive. Pause. And this is where many people misunderstand the power of timing. We've been taught to treat Friday like a finish line, like the week is over and nothing meaningful happens until something starts again. But spiritually, Friday is not an ending. It is a threshold. It is the space between what has been and what is about to be. And transitional spaces are always charged with influence. What you do in the in between often determines how you experience what's next. Friday is not a day you survive. It is a moment you steward. A prophetic position means you are standing in a place where words carry weight. It means decisions echo forward. It means what you declare now has the ability to settle things before they arrive. The problem is when we see Friday as passive, we disengage, we mentally clock out. We tell ourselves we'll deal with things tomorrow. But tomorrow doesn't just appear fully formed. Tomorrow is shaped by what you believe tonight. And if you don't step into Friday with intention, you give away authority over what follows. The enemy understands this better than we do. He knows Friday is when defenses drop. This is when you're more likely to compromise, more likely to numb, more likely to scroll instead of pray, more likely to replay instead of prepare. He's not after your entire life in one moment. He's after your posture in the transition. Because if he can get you passive in the pause, he can get you unprepared in the promise. A prophetic position requires awareness. It means you recognize that even rest can be intentional. Even silence can be strategic. Even stillness can be surrendered. But passivity is different. Passivity says, whatever happens, happens. Prophetic posture says, I'm watching, I'm listening, I'm aligned. One posture waits to react. The other chooses to respond before anything even shows up. Friday is when you decide what kind of Saturday you'll wake up into. Will it be rushed or rested? Will it be anxious or anchored? Will it be reactive or rooted? Those decisions are not made when the alarm goes off. They're made when you choose what you allow into your spirit the night before. That's why Friday matters. It's not about doing more. It's about being positioned correctly. Some of you feel spiritually off on Saturdays, not because God is distant, but because you walked into the day unguarded. You let Friday drain you instead of direct you. You let exhaustion make your choices instead of discernment. But when you recognize Friday as prophetic, you stop treating it casually. You start asking different questions. You start paying attention to your thoughts. You start noticing what your emotions are leaning toward. You start correcting the narrative before it settles. A prophetic position also means alignment. You don't drag the weight of the week into the weekend. You lay it down intentionally. You name what you're releasing. You forgive where you need to forgive. You surrender what you can control. You don't just hope it fades overnight. You place it where it belongs. Because whatever you carry through Friday often shows up magnified on Saturday. Passivity feels easier because it requires nothing from you, but ease is not always peace. Sometimes ease is just avoidance wearing a comfortable outfit. A prophetic posture requires participation. It asks you to be present even when you're tired. It asks you to be intentional even when you're worn out. It asks you to partner with God instead of postponing him. When you understand Friday as a prophetic position, you stop wasting it. You stop letting it slip by unnoticed. You stop assuming it doesn't matter. You realize that heaven pays attention to transitions. Scripture is filled with moments where everything changed in the in-between. Between promise and fulfillment. Between prayer and answer. Between rest and resurrection. God does some of his deepest work in spaces we rush through. So tonight is not just another night. It is a moment pregnant with possibility. It is a chance to speak, to align, to prepare, to declare. You are not waiting on Saturday to bring something new. You are standing in the doorway deciding what is allowed to enter. And when you stop treating Friday as passive, you start walking in it as prophetic. The enemy speaks early to shape expectation, because he understands that what you expect determines how you interpret everything that follows. He doesn't need to stop God from moving if he can convince you not to look for him. He doesn't need to block blessings if he can train you to overlook them. Expectation is the lens through which you experience life, and whoever controls that lens influences your response before the moment even arrives. That's why the enemy never waits for the event. He shows up ahead of time, planting suggestions, questions, and assumptions long before Saturday morning comes. He speaks early because early words settle deep. They slip in when you're tired, when your guard is down, when you're reviewing the week instead of watching your thoughts. He speaks when you're emotionally exposed, when you're trying to relax, but your mind keeps racing. And his voice is rarely loud or dramatic. It's subtle. It sounds reasonable. It sounds familiar. It sounds like your own inner dialogue. He tells you not to get your hopes up. He reminds you of how things went wrong last time. He says you've been disappointed before, so why would this be any different? And slowly, expectation shifts from faith to caution. Once expectation is shaped, reaction becomes predictable. If you expect chaos, you'll tense up at the smallest inconvenience. If you expect disappointment, you'll brace yourself even in moments meant for joy. If you expect rest to fail, you'll never fully relax. The enemy doesn't need to ruin the day when he can preload you with anxiety the night before. He just needs to get inside your anticipation. Because anticipation sets the tone. It decides whether you wake up open or guarded, hopeful or defensive, receptive or resistant. That's why so many people say nothing even happened, but I woke up feeling off. It's because something did happen, just not in the natural. A conversation took place in your mind while you weren't paying attention. Expectations were adjusted quietly. Faith was diluted gently. And by the time the day arrived, you were already responding to a narrative that had been written without your consent. The enemy understands timing better than we give him credit for. He knows there is a small window before rest where thoughts are most impressionable. He knows Friday night is when reflection can turn into self-judgment. He knows that if he can speak early, he won't have to speak much later. Because once you expect the worst, you'll do the rest of the work for him. You'll misinterpret neutral moments as negative. You'll read delays as denial. You'll see silence as absence. And all of it will feel real because expectation trained you to see it that way. But here's the truth that changes everything. Expectation is not passive. It is chosen, whether consciously or unconsciously. And what the enemy shapes early, you can interrupt intentionally. You are not obligated to accept the first voice that speaks. You are not required to agree with the first thought that arrives. You are not powerless in the face of anticipation. You can speak back. You can reset the tone. You can override the narrative before it settles into belief. When you speak intentionally before the enemy finishes his sentence, you disrupt his strategy. You remind your soul what is true. You realign your focus. You take back authorship over your tomorrow. Speaking early is not about superstition. It's about stewardship. You are stewarding your mind. You are guarding your peace. You are deciding that fear will not be the architect of your expectation. This is why waiting until Saturday morning is often too late. By then, expectation has already done its work. You wake up feeling behind, rushed, unsettled, without knowing why. But when you speak on Friday, you arrive prepared. You wake up anchored. You step into the day with clarity because you already declared what kind of atmosphere you would live in. The enemy speaks early to shape expectation, but you can speak earlier to establish truth. Some of you have been fighting days that were lost the night before. You've been praying for peace after anxiety already moved in. You've been asking for clarity after confusion already settled. But the shift comes when you realize that preparation is a form of warfare. Speaking ahead of time is not optional, it's protective. It's how you close doors before fear tries to walk through them. Expectation is powerful because it tells your heart what to look for. If you expect heaviness, you'll find it. If you expect resistance, you'll notice it everywhere. But if you expect grace, you'll recognize it even in small moments. If you expect rest, your body will cooperate. If you expect God to meet you, you'll see his fingerprints all over your day. So when the enemy speaks early, it's because he's afraid of what happens if you speak first. He knows that once you set expectation with faith, his words lose weight. His whispers lose authority. His predictions lose credibility. Because expectation anchored in truth is stronger than fear planted in advance, you must declare rest before exhaustion arrives. Because once exhaustion takes the lead, it does not ask permission. It just takes over. Fatigue is not only physical, it is spiritual and emotional. And if you wait until you feel tired to address it, you're already late. Exhaustion is loud. It clouds judgment. It shortens patience. It distorts perspective. That's why rest is not something you negotiate after you're depleted. It is something you establish in advance. You don't wait for your body to collapse to decide you deserve peace. You speak rest while you still have strengths, so exhaustion never becomes the authority. Many people think rest is a reaction, something you earn after you've done enough, given enough, survived enough. But rest in God's design is preventative, not reactive. It is a boundary, not a reward. When you don't declare rest early, your mind keeps running, your emotions keep working over time, and your body keeps carrying weight it was never designed to hold. And the enemy loves this pattern because exhaustion makes you vulnerable. Tired people are easier to discourage. Worn down people are easier to confuse. Drained people are easier to silence. Exhaustion doesn't always announce itself as tiredness. Sometimes it shows up as irritability. Sometimes it shows up as numbness. Sometimes it shows up as overthinking, scrolling, procrastinating, or shutting down emotionally. And by the time you recognize it, it has already shaped your mood, your tone, your expectation. That's why declaring rest is an act of authority. You are telling your system what will not be allowed to dominate. When you declare rest before exhaustion arrives, you are giving your soul permission to slow down without guilt. You are reminding yourself that you are not a machine. You are not defined by productivity. You are not sustained by pressure. You are sustained by presence. Rest is not weakness, it is wisdom. And when you speak it early, you stop glorifying burnout like it's a badge of honor. The enemy would rather you collapse than confront. He would rather you push until you snap than pause and realign. Because exhaustion dulls discernment. It makes you reactive instead of responsive. It makes you interpret everything through frustration. That's why some people say things they don't mean, make decisions they regret, pull away from God, not because they don't love him, but because they're tired. And tired people don't always hear clearly. Declaring rest is not about doing nothing. It's about choosing what you carry. It's about deciding that peace will not be postponed. It's about interrupting the lie that says you'll rest where everything is finished. Everything is never finished. There will always be another demand, another expectation, another responsibility. If you don't declare rest intentionally, exhaustion will always find a way to justify itself. Friday is the perfect moment to declare rest because it's when the temptation to carry the entire week into the weekend is strongest. You replay conversations. You relive mistakes. You rehearse what you should have said. You plan everything you still need to fix. And without realizing it, you carry the weight straight into Saturday. But when you declare rest on Friday, you lay the load down deliberately. You decide that tomorrow will not be spent recovering from yesterday. Rest declared ahead of time changes how you sleep. It changes how you wake up. It changes how your body responds to stress. It changes how your mind processes interruption. You stop waking up already tired because your spirit knows it was given permission to settle. You stop feeling guilty for slowing down because you already decided rest was necessary, not optional. Some of you have been fighting exhaustion like it's an enemy, when really it's a signal. It's a sign that something has been out of alignment for too long. But instead of correcting the alignment, you've been pushing harder. Declaring rest is how you realign. It's how you tell your life that it will no longer be fueled by pressure. It's how you remind yourself that God does not require you to destroy yourself to prove your devotion. You don't wait for exhaustion to humble you. You choose rest to guard you. You speak it while you still have clarity. You declare it while you still have strength. Because once exhaustion settles in, it doesn't just take energy. It takes joy, patience, creativity, and peace. But when rest is declared early, exhaustion has nowhere to land. Speak peace before. Anxiety rehearses, because anxiety does not wait for permission, it practices. It runs drills in your mind. It replays worst case scenarios until they feel familiar. And if you don't interrupt it early, it will convince you that fear is preparation. Anxiety wants you to believe that worrying is wisdom, that tension is responsibility, that staying on edge means you care. But anxiety is not a signal of awareness. It is a thief of presence. That's why peace must be spoken before anxiety finds its rhythm. Anxiety always arrives early. It doesn't show up when the problem actually happens. It shows up when the possibility is introduced. It starts asking questions you don't have answers for yet. It demands solutions for situations that haven't occurred. It pulls tomorrow's problems into today's body. And once it starts rehearsing, it gets louder with repetition. The more it practices, the more real it feels. That's why you don't wait until anxiety is overwhelming to speak peace. By then, it has already memorized the script. Peace, like authority, responds to invitation. It does not force its way in. You have to make space for it. And making space means you speak it out loud before your thoughts spiral inward. Peace spoken early sets a boundary. It tells your nervous system what tone it will operate in. It reminds your heart that it does not have to brace for impact. Anxiety feeds on silence and uncertainty, but peace thrives on declaration. Many people try to fight anxiety with logic, but anxiety is not logical. It is emotional memory mixed with fear of loss. You can explain away a thought and still feel tight in your chest. You can reason through a situation and still feel unsettled. That's why peace is not negotiated, it is declared. It bypasses the argument and goes straight to the atmosphere. It doesn't debate fear, it displaces it. Anxiety rehearses because it is afraid of being caught off guard. It tells you that if you stay tense, you won't be surprised. But staying tense doesn't protect you, it only exhausts you. It drains you before the battle even starts. And when you are tired from worrying, you don't have the energy left to trust. Speaking peace before anxiety rehearses is how you conserve strength. It's how you refuse to spend emotional energy on imaginary outcomes. Friday nights are dangerous for anxiety because the mind finally slows down enough to wander. The distractions fade, the tasks end, and suddenly thoughts that were suppressed all week come rushing in. Anxiety loves that quiet because it fills it quickly. It starts reviewing conversations. It starts predicting reactions. It starts imagining conflicts. And if you don't speak peace into that space, anxiety will claim it as its rehearsal room. Peace spoken early changes the way your mind rests. It tells your thoughts they don't have to stay alert all night. It gives your body permission to unclench. It reminds your spirit that God does not require you to monitor every possible outcome. When you speak peace, you are not denying reality. You are choosing how you will engage with it. Some of you have mistaken anxiety for intuition. You think because the feeling is strong, it must be true. But anxiety exaggerates threat and minimizes grace. It magnifies what could go wrong and ignores what is already covered. Peace recalibrates your vision. It helps you see clearly again. It reminds you that just because could happen doesn't mean it will. And even if it does, you won't face it alone. Speaking peace is not passive. It is an act of resistance. It is you saying that fear does not get to practice unchecked. It is you interrupting the loop before it becomes a lifestyle. It is you choosing trust even when uncertainty is present. Peace does not require certainty. It requires surrender. When you speak peace Before anxiety rehearses, you change the narrative of your night. You stop letting fear warm up for tomorrow. You stop letting tension spill into your sleep. You stop waking up already anxious, because anxiety that never got to rehearse has less power to perform. You don't wait until your heart is racing to calm it. You speak peace while it's still listening. You don't wait until your thoughts are scattered to focus them. You speak peace while your mind is still pliable, because once peace is declared, anxiety has to adjust. It can no longer dominate a space that has already been claimed. What you expect tomorrow is formed tonight, whether you are aware of it or not. Long before the day arrives, your mind is already preparing for it. Your spirit is already leaning in a certain direction. Your emotions are already setting a tone. And if you don't participate in that formation process intentionally, it will still happen, just without your consent. Expectation is not something you wake up with, it's something you go to sleep with. Nighttime is when beliefs settle. The noise quiets down, distractions fade, and whatever has been running in the background finally comes to the surface. This is when thoughts repeat themselves, when memories replay, when worries grow louder. And in that space, expectation is quietly shaped, not by dramatic moments, but by subtle agreements. By what you allow to loop, by what you don't challenge, by what you assume instead of declare. That's why two people can wake up on the same day and experience it completely differently. One wakes up tense, already bracing for problems. The other wakes up steady, open, and grounded. The difference isn't the circumstances waiting for them. It's the expectation they carried into sleep. One allowed fear to frame tomorrow. The other allowed faith to prepare it. Expectation doesn't just affect how you feel. It affects how you interpret everything. When you expect difficulty, you read neutral moments as resistance. When you expect disappointment, you protect yourself from joy. When you expect rest, your body responds differently. Your breathing slows. Your shoulders drop. Your reactions soften. Expectation trains your nervous system before the day even begins. This is why the enemy works so hard at night. He doesn't need to show up in the morning if he's already shaped your mindset the night before. He knows that if he can influence how you fall asleep, he can influence how you wake up. He plants seeds of worry, regret, and anticipation of failure, knowing they will grow quietly in the dark. But nighttime is also sacred. It's a threshold, a transition between what was and what will be. And transitions are powerful because they are receptive. Whatever you speak in, that space has room to take root. That's why speaking intentionally before sleep is not superstition, it's alignment. You are partnering with God in the shaping of your tomorrow. Some of you wake up tired not because you didn't sleep, but because your mind worked all night. It rehearsed conversations. It replayed mistakes. It imagined outcomes. And that labor shaped your expectation. You wake up already behind because your spirit never rested. But when you declare what tomorrow will look like before you sleep, you give your mind permission to stop working overtime. Expectation formed in peace produces clarity. Expectation formed in fear produces tension. One prepares you to receive. The other prepares you to defend. And defense mode drains you before the day even starts. That's why choosing expectation is not optional, it's necessary. You are either intentionally forming it or unconsciously absorbing it. Friday night is especially important because it sets the tone for how you will rest, recover, and reset. If you expect the weekend to be overwhelming, it often becomes that. If you expect it to be chaotic, you'll notice chaos more quickly. But if you expect restoration, you begin to recognize it even in small moments. Expectation tunes your awareness. You don't wait until morning to decide who you will be. You decide at night. You decide what voice you will listen to. You decide what story you will believe. You decide what atmosphere you will carry into sleep. Because sleep is not just rest for the body, it's processing for the soul. When you speak expectation aligned with truth, you are not controlling outcomes, you are controlling orientation. You are choosing where your heart will face when you wake up. You are choosing whether your spirit will lean toward trust or tension. And that choice matters more than you realize. Tomorrow does not arrive empty. It arrives already shaped by what you believe tonight. And when you understand that, you stop treating the night casually. You stop letting random thoughts run unchecked. You become intentional about what you allow to form in the quiet. Because what you expect tomorrow is not decided in the morning. It is formed long before the sun comes up. Authority is exercised through your voice, not through your intentions, not through your thoughts, and not through what you meant to say later. Authority becomes active the moment it is spoken. Until then, it remains potential. You can believe the right things, desire the right outcomes, even pray silently with sincerity. But there are moments when silence keeps authority dormant. The enemy does not respond to intention. He responds to declaration. He listens for what is spoken because what is spoken establishes jurisdiction. From the beginning, authority has always moved through sound. God spoke and chaos organized itself. Light responded to a command, not a suggestion. Creation didn't wait to see how God felt. It responded to what he said. And when you were created in his image, your voice became more than communication. It became alignment with heaven's order. That's why the enemy works so hard to quiet you, distract you, or convince you that speaking is unnecessary. A silent believer is easier to intimidate than a declaring one. Many people assume authority is about position, but spiritual authority is about permission, and permission is often granted through speech. When you speak, you decide what is allowed to stay and what must leave. When you stay quiet, you leave space undecided. The enemy thrives in undecided spaces. He fills gaps you never meant to leave open. He claims territory you assumed would stay neutral. Silence doesn't mean peace. It often means vacancy. Your voice is not powerful because of volume, but because of alignment. When your words agree with truth, they carry weight. That's why fear tries to choke your voice before it convinces your mind. If fear can keep you from speaking, it doesn't have to fight what you believe. It knows unspoken faith has limited reach, but spoken faith changes atmosphere. It shifts internal posture. It reminds your soul who is in charge. There are moments when you feel overwhelmed, not because the situation is stronger than you, but because you haven't addressed it verbally. You've thought about it. You've worried about it. You've prayed about it internally, but you haven't confronted it with authority. And some things don't move until they are spoken to. Not because God can't act without your voice, but because he designed partnership to include it. Speaking is not about controlling circumstances. It's about refusing to be controlled by them. When you speak peace, fear loses dominance. When you speak clarity, confusion loses momentum. When you speak rest, exhaustion loses access. Your words don't change everything instantly, but they establish direction. And direction determines destination. The enemy understands this, which is why he attacks your confidence in speaking. He tells you your words don't matter. He tells you you've spoken before and nothing changed. He tells you to stop embarrassing yourself. But what he's really afraid of is consistency, because even when you don't see immediate results, something is shifting internally. Your spirit is learning to lead instead of react. Your voice also trains your inner world. When you hear yourself speak truth, your body responds. Your nervous system recalibrates. Your emotions settle. You stop spiraling because something authoritative has entered the conversation. Silence lets thoughts argue endlessly. Speech interrupts the loop. It brings order to chaos inside of you. Authority exercised through your voice also models leadership for your soul. Your soul is listening even when you think it's not. It takes cues from what you say. If you keep saying you're tired, your body agrees. If you keep saying you're overwhelmed, your emotions cooperate. But when you speak strength, peace, and trust, inner world begins to align with what you're declaring. Some of you have been waiting to feel strong before you speak strong. But strength often follows speech, not the other way around. You speak before you feel it. You declare before you see it. You exercise authority before everything lines up. That's how alignment happens. Your voice is not optional in spiritual preparation. It is essential. It is how you take ownership of space. It is how you signal that fear does not get the final word. It is how you remind yourself and the enemy that you are not passive, powerless, or waiting to be overtaken. When you exercise authority through your voice, you are not being loud, you are being intentional. You are not forcing outcomes, you are framing reality. You are not arguing with fear, you are replacing it. And once your voice enters the atmosphere, silence no longer belongs to the enemy. You don't wait for alignment. You declare it, because alignment is not something you stumble into. It is something you speak yourself into. Too many people delay movement, waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel peaceful, waiting to feel certain. But alignment rarely announces itself with emotion. Most of the time, alignment begins with obedience before confidence, with declaration before clarity. If you wait for everything to line up internally before you speak, you will stay stuck in preparation while opportunity passes by. Alignment is not the absence of tension. It is the presence of direction. You can feel unsure and still be aligned. You can feel tired and still be aligned. You can feel stretched and still be aligned. The mistake is thinking alignment feels calm from the start. Sometimes alignment feels uncomfortable because you are shifting out of familiar patterns. And the enemy knows this. He uses discomfort as a reason to delay declaration. He tells you to wait until things settle, until emotions quiet down, until circumstances improve. But waiting for alignment often keeps you misaligned. Declaring alignment is how you signal your willingness to move with God, even when your feelings lag behind. It is you saying, I may not feel it yet, but I choose to stand where truth says I belong. When you declare alignment, you invite your emotions to catch up instead of allowing them to lead. You stop letting feelings dictate direction. You choose direction first, trusting that peace will follow. There are moments when everything around you feels scattered, and your instinct is to pause until it makes sense. But alignment doesn't come from clarity. Clarity comes from alignment. Once you declare where you stand, decisions become easier. Boundaries become clearer. Distractions lose power. You stop spinning because you've chosen a direction. The enemy thrives in delay. He doesn't need to knock you off course if he can convince you to stand still. He knows that hesitation often looks spiritual. It feels wise. It feels cautious. But caution without obedience can quietly become disobedience. Declaring alignment is how you break out of that loop. It is how you step out of analysis and into agreement. Alignment also affects what you attract. When you declare alignment, you become selective. You stop entertaining conversations that drain you. You stop engaging in patterns that confuse you. You stop negotiating with habits that pull you off center. Declaring alignment sharpens your discernment because you've made a decision about who you are and where you are going. Some of you have been waiting for circumstances to confirm alignment, but circumstances often follow declaration, not the other way around. When you speak alignment, you create a reference point. Your mind knows where to return when it drifts. Your spirit knows what to correct when things feel off. You stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, does this align with what I declared? Declaring alignment also brings accountability. Once you speak it, you hear yourself. You can no longer pretend you didn't know better. Your words become a mirror. They remind you of your commitment when temptation tries to pull you back. They remind you of your intention when fear suggests retreat. Alignment is not a feeling you chase, it is a position you choose, and choosing it out loud matters. When you declare alignment, you are not demanding perfection. You are declaring direction. You are saying, even if I stumble, this is the path I'm on. Even if I grow slowly, this is where I stand. You don't wait for your life to feel aligned before you move forward. You move forward and alignment meets you in motion. You speak before you see. You declare before you feel. Because alignment responds to obedience, not comfort. And when you stop waiting for alignment and start declaring it, your inner world begins to organize itself around. The truth you've spoken, spiritual preparation is louder than fear, even when it feels quiet on the outside. Fear makes noise, but preparation makes impact. Fear announces itself with urgency, pressure, and worst-case scenario, while preparation works beneath the surface, steady and intentional. The mistake many people make is assuming that whatever feels loud must be powerful. But volume has never been the measure of authority. Consistency is. Fear shouts to get your attention, but preparation speaks to your future. Fear wants a reaction. It wants you panicked, rushed, emotionally charged. Preparation wants alignment. It wants you grounded, aware, and positioned. And when you choose preparation, you may look calm, but spiritually you are fortified. You are building walls before the storm. You are setting boundaries before temptation. You are anchoring truth before confusion shows up. Fear hates preparation because it removes surprise. It takes away fear's favorite weapon, which is shock. Spiritual preparation does not mean you anticipate everything that could go wrong. It means you establish what will remain steady no matter what happens. You prepare your heart to stay soft. You prepare your mind to stay clear. You prepare your spirit to stay connected. Fear depends on instability. Preparation creates consistency. And consistency weakens fear's influence over time. Fear often feels louder because it's immediate. It wants answers now. It wants reassurance now. It wants control now. Preparation is patient. It works in advance. It doesn't rush because it understands timing. That's why fear tries to convince you that preparation is unnecessary, boring, or excessive. It tells you you're doing too much, thinking too deeply, being too intentional. But fear only mocks what it cannot overcome. When you prepare spiritually, you are choosing depth over drama. You are choosing roots over reaction. You are choosing strength that lasts over emotion that fades. Fear thrives when you live moment to moment without foundation. Preparation gives you something to stand on when emotions fluctuate. Spiritual preparation is louder than fear because it shapes your response before fear even speaks. When fear shows up, it finds a prepared mind, a settled spirit, a heart that has already decided what it will believe. Fear loses its leverage when it realizes it's not entering an empty space. Preparation fills the room before fear walks in. Many people wait to prepare until fear appears. But that's like putting on armor in the middle of a battle. Preparation is proactive. It's what you do when things are calm so you don't collapse when things get intense. It's prayer before pressure. It's clarity before chaos. It's truth before tension. And though it may look quiet, it is making more noise in the spirit than fear ever could. Fear tries to rush you because it knows preparation takes time. It tries to distract you because it knows preparation requires focus. It tries to exhaust you because it knows